yourself through roll call.
Okay.
Attention, please. We're getting started.
Larry Dye.
Here.
Michelle Hinton.
Here.
Tim Hinkle. Danny Loggins.
Here.
Michelle Manus.
Here.
Jason Ragland.
Here.
Cindy Siler.
Here.
Andy Treat.
Here.
Wayne Richard.
Here.
We have 8 present, out of 5.
You go a prayer, Wayne.
Lord, we thank you for this great privilege that we have to come together in this place to do the people's business. We ask that you grant us wisdom and understanding so that the right decisions are made. I thank you that there's a spirit of peace and unity as we proceed forward tonight. We ask, Father, for your protection over this county and the people in this county, in this state, in this nation. These are momentous times, a momentous period that we live in, so we pray for your divine providence in everything that's said and done in this county, in this state, and in this nation, and even around the world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do a recording.
Get approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed? We got no old business, new business. Lori, election commission.
Hello, everybody. So I apologize, last month I wanted to give you this report, but I was in bed and you did not want me here, I promise. I was sick. But I wanted to give you a report on what we spent on the primary election. And the numbers I'm gonna share with you are, it's primary and the primary runoff all together. There are some ongoing expenses in our budget that have to do with payroll costs, things that I don't really understand. So the numbers I'm giving you are what we actually spent putting on the election, okay? I wanted to compare because a big issue with paper ballots was how much is it gonna cost? And we had been told that it was gonna cost a lot. And so we tried to keep very careful numbers. And then what I did is I went back to the 22 primary. We also had a runoff in 22 in Leslie, not in Marshall. And so the numbers I'm gonna give you are the grouping of the primary and the primary runoff in 22 and in 24. And so in 2022 primary and primary runoff, we spent $42,974.72. That's based on payroll, printing, what we pay ES&S, and other election expenses. This year, the 2024 primary and primary runoff, we spent $35,906.64. So we spent right around, I'm gonna round it off, right around $7,000 less this year than we did 2 years ago. That's about 8% of our budget. Somebody said I don't do percentages, but I think our budget's about 9,000. And so we were very pleased with that. I hope that you are pleased with that. I don't know if y'all have any questions about it or where the money was spent or why the difference is. I'll be glad to answer questions if you have any.
Well, I noted at the state audit of your commission, there was a judge there from Saline County which said that it would bankrupt us, and he was quoting numbers in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost that would be imposed upon our county. Would you say that he was on target with his estimation, or do you think that we actually beat the expectations that Saline County judge had, who was brought to testify against what your commission is doing?
I think he was operating on the inaccurate threats that we had also received when we were looking at whether we were going to have paper ballots or not. We were told it would bankrupt our county, that it would just cost tens of thousands more. And as we discussed in this room over time, because you guys appointed a committee to investigate the cost, we learned that there were some things that would cost more, but we would also save money other places where we wouldn't have to spend the money. I was actually surprised that we spent less this year than we did in 22, because I expected to about break even, because it seemed to me that where we were saving money, we were gonna be spending about that amount, like because of printing ballots, and payroll was higher. Actually, payroll wasn't higher. Payroll in 22 was 24,000, and this year it was 22,000. Somehow we spent a lot less on payroll in the runoff, but we did spend a couple thousand more, almost exactly 2,000 more in payroll in early voting. And one of the reasons is because we had a lot of new people who were working the polls, and so we brought them in to work for several hours during early voting so they could get experience working. And so we did have a higher early voting payroll because of that. I think a lot of people noted that sometimes were required to have a minimum of 4. When we trained, Chris Madison, who is the director of the State Board of Commissioners, told us in training he wanted us to try to have 6 at every location. I said, will you reimburse us for that payroll? He said, I will reimburse you for poll workers, because we get reimbursed for primary expenses, most of them. And so we did, we went out looking for more workers, more poll workers, and they hadn't had experience. So we brought them in, and sometimes we had 6 or even 8 in early voting for a couple of hours here and there as they crossed over, as they were training. But we feel like things at the polls went very smoothly, even in areas where we had several new poll workers, and I feel like it's because we spent more time training them up front.
Any more questions?
What was the cost of your printing of the ballots?
The cost of printing the ballots for the election and for the runoff was $6,000. But if y'all remember, I told you we were gonna save a significant amount on some other areas if we went paper ballots. And I will also say that the savings will continue down through the years as we start looking at replacing the machines we have, which are almost obsolete at this point. And so we, I can't call on you. We were told by the Secretary of State's office that the machines we currently have are designed to last from 10 to 15 years. They have computers in them. So my computer, I never keep a computer for 10 years, but they're simple computers, I think. And so they're now 10 years old. And so sometime in the next 5 years, 12 to 15, 2 to 5 years, we're gonna be expected to replace our machines, the state of Arkansas. And the woman from the Secretary of State was asked, what is that gonna cost the state? She said about $50 million. And the senator asked her if the state had a plan to set that money aside so that when the machines had to be replaced, the state would have the money to replace it. And she said, no, there's no plan, there's been no money set aside for that. And I think we can deduce the possibility that it's because they're going to expect the counties to replace their machines and pay for their machines.
On the county's back.
On the county's back. Right. We'll be in a good place at that point in time, because instead of, say, having to have 24 express votes, the machines that you mark your ballot on, we only really need 10 if we're using paper ballots. That saves a lot of money right there. And instead of 12 of the DS200s, which are the tabulators, we will only need 4 instead of 12. So we'll save $200,000 or $300,000 if we aren't having to buy those machines sometime in the next 5 years. Any other questions?
Will you come back and give the Quorum Court a report after the November election?
Yes, I will be glad to. Be very
So
happy.
I'd be very interested in hearing what those numbers are.
Okay, will do.
Quick question,
Yeah, Michelle.
the audit in Little Rock,
Uh-huh.
what was the discrepancies on, what was some of the issues that was brought up down there?
The biggest issue was that we had, in our tabulations, we missed 11 votes. And it did not impact the race, but we were very sad because we worked so hard not to miss any vote. I mean, the whole point was that everybody's vote counted. And it was a breakdown in the way that we were keeping our records, because we had never done a paper ballot election before. And we had to pretty much invent the wheel from the beginning. We had no training from the state at all. They never helped us. So we had to figure out what numbers we had to keep track of along the way and how to keep track of them so that we could keep a comparison so we would know if we were on track. And I think we did a really good job, but we didn't do a perfect job. But I will assure you guys of this, we've gone back and we've looked at our paperwork, we have modified it, we are confident that this general election, we will not miss one vote.
But to clarify, the tabulator counted the paper ballots. It had to do with the paper trail that you had on
Yes.
your,
Yes.
so the vote was counted, it just wasn't seen on your tabulation over here because of the methodology.
Well, there were a number of ballots that the tabulator did not count.
Okay.
Our tabulators don't read our absentee votes. The tabulator didn't read the nonpartisan ballots, but the things that were printed in the clerk's office, which is the Secretary of State's printer, okay, the tabulator won't read.
So
And this isn't the first year that's been the case. It's not a problem because we hand count them.
So the point is that whoever went in and voted on a hand-marked paper ballot, when it was run through the tabulator caught that.
Yeah.
So it would have been an issue anyhow, because the computers, people don't vote on the computer with an absentee ballot, so you have to hand count those.
Yeah,
It's the methodology of
it's our methodology of counting.
hand counting
Yes.
the absentee votes.
Yes, it was our mistake. It was our error, 100%.
But
but
it
we
was
have
not the
fixed-
precincts running those hand-marked through
No.
the tabulators.
No.
Okay,
No, it was our error in the final tabulation.
of absentees and.
No, of all of them. Yeah. If we had had the paperwork we have now, we would have noticed that our numbers, our hand count numbers did not match the adding up what the tabulator plus the absentees plus the ballots that the tabulator would not scan. Because if you put marks on, like, some people voted and then they marked it out, no, I don't wanna vote that, and the tabulator will never read that. It's easy for us to know what the voter meant in those cases, but we have to hand count that because the tabulator will spit those back every time.
I just found it interesting that you have no training, you have no support from the state, but at election, I came in here just to see the process. And there were people from the state here every single day watching every move that Searcy County made with that election, but absolutely provided no preliminary support, guidance, direction on what needed to be done or how it should have been done. It was like, we want you to fail, we're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
catch you
I'd
in
say that's
this.
the
I mean,
case.
they cared to send people up here to watch everything that was done on election day, but they didn't care enough to send anybody to support us and help with that process.
Well, and in that counting process, we actually were really happy to have the state people here. We said, listen, it's the first time we've done it, we're so glad you're here, will you show us if there's anything that needs to be tweaked, or, you know, if we're missing something, cause, you know, you're here to monitor us and help us out, cause we wanna have the best election possible. And as a matter of fact, some of our commissioners and one or two of our coordinators throughout the day went up to them and said, how are we doing? Are you seeing anything that we need to work on? You guys are doing a much better job than we expected. We're really impressed. Your people are well trained. you're doing a good job, actually really an excellent job, and that's the report we got all day long in county. But we've just received a I don't even know what it's called. What do you call it, Jeff?
Well,
Complaint?
yeah, it's a complaint.
It's a complaint from the state board that we did some things wrong when we were counting. And just as an example, one of the things that they're charging us with, or they're investigating, is that evidently there's a law that says you have to, when you do your final tally with your paper ballots, you have to use a adding machine with a tape. And then the tape goes with your record keeping. Well, we have been using handheld calculators all day long, so when we did our final tally, we were doing it with the handheld calculator. And the state people stood right there beside us as we set up to do our final tally with our calculators on the table, never said, by the way, did you know that it's a law that you have, if they had said that, we would have trotted right across the street to the clerk's, our very nice clerk's office. We would have got the right type of machine with the tape, we would have brought it over and we would have tallied with the tape, no problem. They sat there beside us for 2 hours and watched us.
Never said a word.
Never said a word, and now they filed a formal complaint against us because of it. So this is what we've been enduring all year. This is what this county has been enduring all year. And I just want to tell you guys, I appreciate your support. I appreciate the courage that you had in making the determination in the first place. And I appreciate the way you stand behind us in what we're doing.
Well, I appreciate you and the commissioners and everybody that's been part of it to do this and take all the criticism that's went with it at
Yeah.
different levels, so thank you.
Well, we've learned a lot and it's been fun, right? Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Thank you, guys.
I have a question. The election in November, how's it gonna differ than what we've seen so far?
It will be the same, except we will be keeping records in a different way.
As far as all that's gonna be on the ballot, is that gonna be bigger, smaller, the same?
The ballot will be front and back because we have those big, we have 4 big issues with a lot of print.
Okay.
So, the ballot will be front and
That's
back.
gonna affect probably cost on that some, for printing?
I can't remember, Margot, did we have front and back on the ballot in the primary? It's amazing how these things fade from your mind.
That's a good question. I think that,
Anybody remember, Elsie,
I
Ken?
thought it was just front.
I think
Was
it
it
was
just
just
front?
one-sided
I thought
I
ballot.
think it was just one-sided.
Yeah.
It won't cost significantly more.
Right, it's not gonna be any additional sheets of paper.
Right, yeah, because it'll be front and back. Might take a little bit more time counting, tallying. We did have an amazing number of people who volunteered to be counters who would not accept pay to count because they believed it was important and they wanted to save the county money. I would say half of the people who counted signed affidavits saying, I don't want to receive pay, volunteering my time. Pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
I love my county. Yeah.
Judge, may I recognize Miss Ellen Griffith, please? Miss Ellen?
Yes, Lori, you've done great, and I just wanted to comment on your comparison between 22 and 24. There's been a lot of inflation in 2 years, so if the numbers were comparable with the inflation, we saved a lot more than that $7,000 or so.
Our goal is to save the county money. Our goal is to find a way to put on a very high quality election for as little as possible. And we see ways to cut even further, but right now there are laws that prevent us from doing so. But there are some legislators who are saying they're gonna try to change some of those laws. So we may be able to actually cut our costs even further in the future.
I'd like to recognize Miss Margot.
I just wanted to, answer on the question about tallying the, primary versus the general. We had to have 81 different ballot faces in the primary because of the, Republican and Democrat and nonpartisan ballots, and we'll only have 23 this time. I'm pretty sure it's 23. And also, just because the ballot is front and back doesn't mean there are more items, because we didn't have these, 3 pages worth of referendum language on the primary ballot. So the back side of the ballot is just like one issue that needs to be tallied, and it takes up the whole page because it's a long referendum.
Ms. Margot is, one of the two election coordinators.
Yes.
And, I would like to comment that, JPs very much appreciate what the election commissioners are doing. My feeling is you guys are gonna get paid for what you do. It's volunteer, is that correct?
We get paid
I
for
mean,
the
you
meetings,
get you get refunded for mileage and things like that, but it's not like a
It's not a
monthly.
job.
It's not a job. And you guys have put, LC, Ms. Laurie and
Ken
Mr.
Weekly.
Weekly has put many hours into this. And my issue is on paper ballots, I will support whatever I feel my district needs, and that's where I stand. But my thing is that I don't feel that, from what I have heard, that the commissioners are receiving accolade or support from those who, I guess, best understand the pressures you guys are under. And I wish that from the state level, you guys could receive more training and more support, especially because the county voted for this, the Quorum Court voted for this, the town hall voted for this. All input that most of us received was for this, and so I think it would be best for the state to support the will of the people in Searcy County, and I think that would help. It would be a lot of goodwill would go toward the state if we could receive that. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's all right, got it. Just got some. Why you want something?
Ms. Cindy, do you wanna talk about the fairgrounds?
Yes, so at our last meeting, we discussed, Ms. Pam had came in and had brought up some issues with some, taxes and tax options. And I know that Wayne had visited with Kevin Elliott, I also visited with Kevin Elliott. And because it was already after the city council had met, and so Kevin could not speak on behalf for the city council, but then again, speaking to Wayne and then speaking to Chad, I think right now our best situation, and of course, none of us want to tax our residents any more than we need to anyway, especially in this current economic landscape we've got in front of us. I think we should put this on hold, the discussion of any further taxes for the fair, until the city can step in and make a decision, because for those that don't know, the fairgrounds sit on city property with a lease from the city for X amount of years for some low amount of money, but the buildings itself belong to the fair board itself. So it's kind of a really shallow creek to step into right now. So I think we should just hold, let Pam visit with the city again, at their next meeting or at their next convenient when they wanna talk to her about it. My understanding the fair was great this past week, and she was very, very tired on everything, but the fair itself as well. So I think we should just allow the city to discuss it any further, and then if she needs to come back and visit us, we can, and pick it back up to take a look at.
Mayor Elliott was adamant that it was not the Quorum Court's lane, it was the city of Marshall's lane, and so I think, I don't even know if we have to vote on this, but this needs to be concluded, the
We
matter needs
can.
to be concluded in this court.
Table it.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that it has nothing to do with the Quorum Court, and so, it appears as if it is totally in the court of the city council. I recognize Ms. Margot.
It would be a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Parliamentarian. I move that we postpone indefinitely the request from, Ms. Pam for the Quorum Court to entertain a tax initiative for this fairground project.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I do have, two matters, one of which will be pertaining to, the Quorum Court's establishment of timelines and procedures for annual county budget submissions. I would like to get to this last, but before I do that, I want to, present an ordinance for the Quorum Court to consider. I know that it didn't make the Thursday deadline, the 3 working days before the Quorum Court deadline. that this ordinance pertains to the matter of JPs. If they miss 2 quorum courts in a year, and then let's say the 3rd and the 4th quorum court, they're involved in an accident or they're sick. Most of us don't know this, but the existing ordinance pertaining to the provision of insurance, that ordinance requires that the JPs be required to pay for the insurance payment out of their pockets. Did you guys know that? It was brought to my attention by someone in the courthouse, and so I have drafted an ordinance, and I request permission to present this to the quorum court tonight, and that would need to pass with a 2/3 vote of the JPs to hear this ordinance. So I move that we present this ordinance tonight for the quorum court to review.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I'd like to read this. An ordinance amending the requirement for insurance premium payment for justices of the peace in Searcy County, Arkansas. Whereas the Searcy County Quorum Court recognizes the importance of ensuring that justices of the peace can perform their duties effectively and attend scheduled meetings. Whereas the current ordinance states that insurance premiums paid by the county for justices of the peace will not be paid for any individual who has missed more than 2 scheduled meetings in a calendar year. Whereas the Quorum Court acknowledges that unforeseen circumstances, such as significant health issues or incapacitation, may prevent a justice of the peace from attending scheduled meetings through no fault of their own. Therefore, be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Searcy County, Arkansas, Section 1, the current ordinance regarding the insurance premium payment for justices of the peace is hereby amended to include the following provision. In the event that a justice of the peace is unable to attend more than 2 scheduled meetings in a calendar year due to a serious health issue, incapacitation, or other significant or verifiable medical conditions, the Quorum Court shall consider this an exception to the insurance premium payment rule. To qualify for this exception, the justice of the peace or the representative must submit a written request to the county judge's office, along with documentation from a licensed medical professional confirming the nature and expected duration of the incapacitation or health issue. The Quorum Court may review and approve or deny the request on a case-by-case basis, taking into consideration the specific circumstances and any supporting documentation provided. If approved, the justice of the peace will retain their insurance premium payments for the duration of their medical leave, subject to periodic reviews and additional documentation as needed. Severability clause. If any section, clause, sentence, or provision of this ordinance shall be held invalid or unconstitutional by a court of competent jurisdiction, such holding shall not affect any other section, clause, sentence, or provision of this ordinance, which can be given effect without the invalid portion. And to this end, the provisions of this ordinance are declared to be severable. All other provisions of the existing ordinance shall remain in full force and effect unless specifically amended herein. The ordinance shall take effect and be in full force from and after its passage and approval. So the point of this is, if we're allowed to miss 2 meetings, as the ordinance currently states, but if a JP misses that 3rd, 4th, or 5th meeting, currently they have to make those insurance premium payments. I don't know what they are, but they're pretty high. And my argument is, at a time when you most need insurance, that's the time you do not need to have $600 or $700 or $800 charged to you if you're sick, or let's say you plow your car into a building and you're in the hospital for 3 months. You know, so I suspect the ordinance was originally written because it was a way to prevent people from being office holders only for the benefit of insurance and not coming to quorum court. And I support that. But if someone is ill, then I believe the point of insurance is to help those people who are ill or have had a major accident. That's all I gotta say.
Question, So elected officials at the county level, there's not a clause for elected officials
No.
other than the JPs,
Only the
correct?
JPs,
Only the JPs, okay.
and, which seems a little unfair to me, but I think I can understand why, probably at some point in the future, I mean, the past.
There was a need.
I get my right mixed up.
Something
There
more to
prob-
that.
Probably, you know, I don't know, but there might have been that people weren't coming to Quorum Court. And therefore, they only were JPs just to get that benefit. So, I move that we pass this, and then I would like to do a title read, instead of presenting in 3 consecutive months, but it's up to you guys. So, I move that we pass this, this ordinance as read.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I would like to move, and there is no ordinance number on this, so how would I do this?
We'll, put it on there
Okay,
tomorrow.
I would like to make a motion that we do a title read only of this ordinance, an ordinance amending the requirements for insurance premium payment for justices of peace in Searcy County, Arkansas. I move that we do a title read only.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
An ordinance amending the requirements for the insurance premium payment for justices in Searcy County, Arkansas, recognizing the need to provide insurance without charging, it's hard without having that ordinance number up, I gotta make this up, without charging the JPs because, they were unable to attend the Quorum Court meeting because of their illness or injury.
Any second?
I'll
I'll-
second.
okay, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Michelle, do you wanna move for title read only?
You
Go
want to
ahead.
suspend the rules?
I move to suspend the rule for, 3 consecutive readings with a title read only on the ordinance amending the requirements for insurance premium payments for justice of the peace in Searcy County, Arkansas.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And was that the third reading or is this upcoming of the third reading?
This would be the third, if you count the first one.
Okay, I move to suspend the rule for 3 consecutive days reading of the ordinance to amend the requirement for insurance premium payments for justices of the peace in Searcy County.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, anything else?
I do. We passed an ordinance last year, we enacted an ordinance that the Quorum Court of Searcy County would establish timelines and procedures for annual county budget submissions, and so I would like to read 3 of these paragraphs because we're going into October, and I would like to refresh the JPs in the court what the expectation is going into next month. Each county official, elected or appointed, shall prepare detailed and itemized estimates of expenditures for the upcoming fiscal year. These budgets shall be provided to the county clerk by the 2nd Thursday of October. After compiling the provided budget estimates, the county clerk shall collate and submit this information to the Quorum Court Budget Committee. This information shall be provided by the 4th Thursday of October. The county treasurer shall prepare a projected revenue detail report, which shall anticipate by fund revenues for the subsequent budget year. This report shall be provided to the Quorum Court Budget Committee by the 4th Thursday of October. So I read this because we're into the second week of September. So, Mr. Cotton, we probably should advise, I don't know how we would do this, but advise the department heads that they will need to be submitting to your office a draft budget.
I'll be distributing the, next year's the budget that we have this year, and then what they want to change it to. They'll be getting that the end of this week. And so that will just have a little cover letter on it, since I have to have this back by that
The
timeframe.
second Thursday of October.
And with that, I'm providing the same information that we did last year as far as the possible raises, but I'm capping that at 3%, because I'm sure we're not gonna go over that. So I'm doing Of course, a 0 will be a 0, but a 1, 2, and 3%, and what that would mean to their budget as far as payroll is concerned.
So I guess I wrote this ordinance and I don't even remember writing it. That's crazy. But for some reason I have that and we all agreed and voted that the treasurer will be providing the projected numbers for her, for her 2025 funds the 4th Thursday of October, and that's the way we want that to happen. So that was because people were getting ideas of how much money would be available, and we're setting their budgets to that. That's what we agreed, right?
Yeah.
So.
And we've had so much trouble with that anticipated income in the past, when we get a bucket full of budgets that are at that anticipated from the treasurer's office, then we realize if we don't have that much money, everybody's having to go back to the drawing board. I mean, they need to ask for what they feel like they're gonna need, not what they think that they're gonna get.
So
because it don't always work out that way,
that's what's gonna be different in this budget cycle. I believe, based on what we know, and I've only been here, this will be my 4th budget cycle, the budgets were being developed off the anticipated for the subsequent year, and that's gonna be different this year because they're not gonna have the anticipated numbers in front of them to develop that budget. So.
or shouldn't.
Well, they won't, because they'll have to have it in 2 weeks earlier than that number even comes out. As far as concerns the potential of a raise, I think if I recall, the general fund has about 27 departments that tap into that general fund. 27 departments tap out of that Fund 1000, and Ms. Hinchy and I have looked at numbers, and we continue to show that we're drifting below anticipation for the year, what we would see coming in. I know that the collection of the personal property tax we're gonna see a bump on that. We don't know yet. I've called Mr. Randy to find out what that number might be, maybe $350,000 to $400,000. But I think the big concern with the budget committee is going to be the carryover going into 25. And so that's one of the challenges we're gonna face. I know that there's going to be a raise expected, but just be on notice that we think that we're all in agreement that the general fund there's gonna be maybe some issues going into next year with that general fund, with the carryover. Because the carryover this year was like it was projected 1.7 million. I think we budgeted off 1.2. I'm just going off numbers top of my head. I don't think we're gonna see anything near that going into 25.
And again, this is just what we're tracking. There could be monies coming in that we don't know anything about, and I hope there is.
I talked with the judge about it, and he's kind of concurring with.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't look good.
How's your road fund? How's that looking?
It's pretty good. It could be better, but it's
I mean, are they pulling in money as anticipated?
not as good as I thought it would.
So that's a challenge.
Anybody else got anything? Anybody out there got anything?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?